I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic, and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans. And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field. Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today. What's up, everybody? Welcome to a little post-game Iowa State. The second-ranked Cyclones lose to West Virginia this afternoon in Morgantown, 64-57. Tough one, tough day of shooting. We'll get to all that. We'll break it down. Rob Gray, our veteran writer, will join me here in just a couple of minutes. Thanks to Channel Seed for bringing us today's program. As always, we are also presented by the Natuzzo family at Raymond James. They are your financial advisors for all Cyclone fans. And, of course, Keen Project Solutions. Iowa State, I'm laughing at the comments. We already got a FU, ask the hard questions. I know that somebody was joking as I bring Rob Gray into the program. No, listen, a lot to get to in this one, but most importantly, at the end of the day, basketball is a game where you have to be able to make some shots, and Iowa State really struggled with that today. Two stats stand out to me the most, Rob. The first is Iowa State goes 1 of 17 from three. 2, and this is the most important one, 4 assists on 25 field goals today. That is a horrendous sign for whatever Iowa State's offense was today. I don't remember a ratio that bad in a really long time. It maybe ever. That's got to be up there as far as all-time bad assist on field goal ratios.
Yeah, what's interesting is it's been trending that way lately.
Mm-hmm.
They sort of reversed it a little bit against Kansas. In recent games, teams have done so much to disrupt their actions that they've had to more or less score off the dribble or rather than off the assist or, whatever. But they had 6 a few games back, I think. So I don't know what you can do about it. I mean, clearly Coach DeVries had a game plan that was very reminiscent of the, in honor of Jerry West day or night, or it's night there now, but not the way Jerry West played, but they played a Bob Huggins style branded game. We're going to beat the hell out of you. We know that Iowa State likes to do that too. And, we're going to see how you guys respond. And, West Virginia responded just a little bit better. I mean, I feel like the Cyclones outshot them 44-39, but when you shoot 5.9% from three,
yeah,
you're not going to win a basketball game on the road. You're just not going to. You're just not going to do it
against a good team that prides itself on its home court advantage, like West Virginia does. There's they were up for this game. When you're number 2, everybody's going to be up for you, which is part of the deal, and that's what you want to be. I also think there's some realization here, and I talked about this with Leah in pregame that I thought after watching it back, that Kansas game was a little bit of a mirage to life without Momchilovich for this team. I'm not panicking. Look, blood pressure isn't up at all. Nobody's going undefeated in this league. I told Bloom I put the over/under losses at 3.5, 4. This was like a week ago. And I thought they would lose to Texas Tech or West Virginia, one of the two. Mm-hmm. I would throw Arizona in a couple weeks in there. That's going to be a tough one on a Monday night. But a little bit of a mirage, though, Rob, because all the energy, you usually perform better. This happens all the time in sports. I talk to coaches about when a player is out for the first time, be it injury, be it disciplinary, like if somebody's been a cancer in the locker room. That first game out, they usually perform better than what they actually are without that player. And listen, there's been a lot of games where Momchilovich really wasn't a factor, where Heisey's the guy at the end, whatever. But the great thing about having a 53 or a 50% three-point shooter is he can kill some of these nasty droughts that Iowa State, we saw them go back on today, especially a game where the whistle is as loose as it was. Um, where Iowa State tried to do some bully ball in the middle. They didn't get a lot of calls. And to the credit of the officials, they were consistent. I thought, it was a fight. It was an old Big 12 basketball fight, old Big East style, like you mentioned with Huggins. And would have been nice to have 22 out there. I mean, I'm not saying Iowa State would have won because they got their butts whooped today. I felt like I didn't feel like they were going to come back and win this one. Just I don't know. I didn't get that vibe. But today was life without Momchilovich and how you can space the floor out and all that stuff. And this will be a good opportunity now to bring him back, coach him up, and we'll see a different team on Tuesday night, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a weird game, and certainly Milan is key. He shoots it at a better clip than anybody on the team, obviously, and but that's going to be a while. I mean, as TJ said, it's 4 to 6 weeks, so they got to figure something out. Maybe at some point, Heisey can start hitting 3-point shots. We saw Joshua Jefferson take a few. He's hit them at a reasonable rate in the past. He's not doing that this season. One of the key factors for me, I thought, because you look at some of these numbers, Iowa State out rebounds West Virginia by 10. And, I feel like some of the toughness stats they did well in. But the one that gets me is just, I don't know how many bunnies they missed, and they were contested.
Ton. The
But
shot
Keyshawn
chart's
Gilbert,
ugly.
for the first time, he looked vulnerable at the rim. We talked about how he finishes through contact or just strong at the rim, period, whether there's contact or not, as good as anybody I've seen in the country as a guard. He struggled with that today. I mean, he shot 50%, but, a number of them he missed. We saw Jefferson just come up a little bit short. We saw Chatfield one. I mean, Deshaun Jackson was a non-factor again today. Foul trouble a factor, but he was not the same guy we saw really reemerge in the 17-point win against Kansas. So a lot of things to nitpick, a lot of things to go off about, but you're right. I mean, and it goes back to, if Milan has a decent game, you've got a different situation. But the Cyclones the Cyclones defense was really good, 39% overall. But when they needed stops, when they got up 4, they couldn't get stops. And key moment in the game, they get up 4. West Virginia goes on 11-2 run. West Virginia doesn't trail again. And there's a little bit of everything from the Mountaineers. It wasn't just Small, although he was fantastic. I mean, Hansbury's threes in the first half kept him in it. And it's kind of a monologue here, but I mean, just
no, go for it.
Classic example of a game where a lot of little things go against you. One big thing, can't hit a 3, and you come up short on the road. But until there's 90 seconds left, it's a 1-possession game, and it's anybody's game.
Good point, Rob, because I actually felt at one point when I'm looking at the numbers, I think it was right when Iowa State was like 0 of 13 from 3, and then I went to check live ball turnovers, and I was like, God, I'm surprised Iowa State is like tied here or whatever it was. Like it just didn't feel like it should have even been that close. And I have a lot of comments about Iowa State didn't play defense well, and I mean I don't know, like were they poor? I mean, I felt
39% shooting.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily buy that. I think that they did okay. West Virginia hit some tough shots from 3. I'll give them credit for that. A couple times I thought DeVries scouted them well, where they really took advantage of the Iowa State double team, specifically there early in that first half. Iowa State cleaned it up. Listen. How do they respond from this? That's really what matters from this. We weren't going to see this team go undefeated. The number 1 team in the country, they almost lost again today too. Like this is
number 5 lost, number 7 lost.
Yeah, this happens. And the most important thing is, again, do you agree with me on the Momchilovich thing though? Because it just didn't feel like it was going to matter much against Kansas. And then it was like, how does this thing settle in? And we saw it today. And now you make some adjustments. The other note I would make is I'm just looking at minutes. And this is really interesting because Watson only gets 6 today. You had this is for your guards, okay? Lipsy 37, Jones 36, Gilbert 37. That was not the case early in the year. And I am guessing that TJ Alzenberger and his staff looks at that and because, part of the deal, we want to keep everybody fresh. We can go deep. We have all these lineups. Well, now you don't. And this is when when Milan went out, that's what I tried saying. It was like you just don't have the options now as far as playing different ways. And I think they may have walked into a trap as far as that goes today because you get down early, you're on the road, you want to roll with your 3 guards who you all trust. Be interesting to see how they adjust with that coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, well, they'll never admit it, but again, those are more minutes. Usually you try to have those guys in the 28 to 32 minute range. Those are, 30, 37,
Yeah, it's a
36,
lot.
37. That's more than you want. Fatigue, whether anyone would admit it, pride won't allow most, had to have played a role down the stretch there because every possession was grinding. You talked about the officials; they were consistently inconsistent, and they were consistent in allowing them to play, but they were also inconsistent in occasionally a touch foul coming
Yeah.
out of nowhere.
Yeah, it
That
wasn't great. It wasn't great, but
yeah, had a big. But I mean, that's a nitpick. Again, a game where I think you were as tough. I would say it was as tough as West Virginia, but not skilled enough to pull it out when you can't hit that
no.
shot. Yes, Milan would have made a big difference, but we've seen him had cold shooting games too, and sometimes that's contagious. And does he pull out? Does he go 2 for 3, 3 for 5, whatever? That would have been a big help. But again, a game that was one possession until late. And hey, I've got a little trivia for you before they said on the broadcast 8 straight. West Virginia's won. Is there any place that Iowa State hates playing more than Morgantown?
It reminds me of Colorado back in the like Eustace and Floyd days. That was always like
and even before and after, or to some extent. I mean,
Iowa State's better at Allen Fieldhouse than it is in Morgantown.
Significantly.
Yeah.
And I pulled up the box score. Guess who was the leading scorer when they won on January? I think it was 17th, 2015.
Matt Thomas.
Close. Abdul Nader, 19 points off the bench. George Niang had 16.
I remember that game. We were having a game watch at somewhere, and it was crazy. That place went nuts.
Yeah, but it's been 10 years pretty much. So I mean, that's just how much of a.
It's not a fluke. I mean, McClure was talking about when his number 1 Baylor team went in there and lost by 30. Like it's a hard place to play, no doubt. Real quick, the Houston almost lost. Let's say they should have lost.
They should have
in Orlando today to UCF, who coincidentally is coming to Ames on Tuesday. That game's a lot more interesting now, I think, given what happened with Iowa State today. And then UCF won at Texas Tech. They've taken Houston to the wire. Like they may not have a tournament resume, but they're definitely one of the 60 best teams in the country if anybody watches them. And then Arizona gets punked at Texas Tech today. So 2 of the remaining undefeated teams in the Big 12 lost today, and Houston was literally like 3 seconds away
on the ropes
from losing. So this Big 12 race, it's like, you want to win the conference. You want to be a number 1 seed. That's my goal for this team. You really didn't take that big of a hit today. If you factor, Houston's got to get theirs at some point. But Arizona losing, I mean, everything is obviously still out in front. It's just, my challenge now for this program, and I know they're trying to figure it out because you can see it. And I don't know if I'll watch that game back. I watch every game back. I don't know if I can watch that game back. But I thought that it seemed very easy against Kansas to do what they wanted to do. It's easier to put Watson out there. You got but I mean, what did they get down? Like 7-0 early, gets you completely out of here.
Yeah.
Gets you completely, and then they did a good job by bouncing back and led for the majority of the first half.
Yeah.
But I don't think that rotation wise is what they're going to want.
No,
we'll see. And Jackson's in foul trouble. Like I don't know. Like I'm guessing they make some tweaks from today.
Yeah. Well, another thing about Momchilovich, and we talked about this before, is when he's on the floor, everything automatically is spaced better.
Absolutely.
And this is what we've seen. DeVries had a brilliant game plan. You're going to trap the guards. You're going to bother the guards. You're going to knock them off. You're going to chest bump them every time they try to make a move. How much over dribbling did we see? This is an Iowa State team that moves the ball without dribbling extremely well. But today it was just, you had to, because they were cutting you off all the time and bumping you. And that was the nature of the game. That's it was a brilliant game plan. So then if Iowa State had hit threes like they did against Kansas, automatically you start to space the floor again a little bit, even without Milan in there, because you're hitting threes. When you can't hit some of them, I mean, if Joshua Jefferson is one of those threes, and he had a great game. I mean, it's from a toughness standpoint, another double-double, 10 and 10.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But that changes everything to some extent. I think that's a monumental change because they have to think we can't sag off him completely when he's on the perimeter. And I think he'll hit some eventually. Track record shows that he will. But I mean, today was a perfect storm of, other than Curtis Jones hitting one, they couldn't do anything. And then when you're over dribbling, you're turning it over. And I think Lipsy, Jones, and Gilbert had a combined 10 turnovers. So again, ball in their hands all the time. So, again, a perfect storm, but that's the Milan factor more than anything. Just the fact that he's on the floor allows you to space it better, where it takes makes to space it better with him off the floor.
Well, for those who care about this sort of thing, Iowa State didn't move in KenPom. It's already out. They stay put at number 4, stay at number 10 in offense, and number 5 in defense. So that's how much the metrics think. I would guess, I can't imagine they're not in the top 4 when the polls come out on Monday. This isn't going to do much. It is what it is. This was one of those tough days. Again, it's how do you respond, and how do you. Your comment on the spacing is just because like Curtis is that type of a shooter, but it's different. It's just different the way that he plays with the big man that can do it. You have guys that can make shots, but you don't have that like true big that can sit out there on the.
And Heisey, if Heisey hits one, and he's struggled there too.
I'm worried about him as far as that goes. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Since he's been much of an offensive threat. I think he has it in him to bounce back. But it's right now, like in a game like today, it's kind of tough to have him out there, right? Because you need.
Yeah, I mean, he rebounded well, he defended well, but again, he couldn't. He had a shot at the end, with the final seconds, whatever, but just could not hit in the big moments of the game. Again, this isn't nitpicking on guys who. I mean, again, Jefferson. No. Has been great for Iowa State. Heisey's been great, generally speaking. It's just you have to see elements of their offensive bag, more or less, show up in games like this. Or you lose the game and turn the page and say, hey, why can't we win 10 more in a row?
I'd rather lose going 1 of 17 than going 9 of 17 from 3. That makes me feel a lot better. Because if you're even just bad, if you can just not be horrific, if you can just be bad today, you either win or you're in overtime or something like that. So, okay, thanks, Rob. I know you're gonna go and do your post game story. Appreciate you. It's always good to have your analysis, Rob Gray, with us here on the Channel Seed post game show. Iowa State loses 64-57. So real quick, let's just run down everything from today in the Big 12 for those of you who are hanging out with me on your Saturday evening. Iowa State loses. So really interesting one in Lawrence, where Kansas got up like 16-0 on Kansas State early. Good job by Jerome Tang's team to not roll over and quit in that game. It was only a 10-point deficit, 84-74. Kansas won that one. The best game of the day was Houston and UCF. That game was awesome. Houston just ekes one out at the end, 69-68, in a really interesting bout with UCF coming up in Ames on Tuesday night. Cincinnati beat Arizona State. Iowa State gets them a week from today in Tempe. 67-60 was your final. Texas Tech hands Arizona its first Big 12 loss, 70-54. And Colorado still winless in the league. They lose at Oklahoma State 83-73. So not a lot of harm as far as the Big 12 race goes. Doesn't really impact Iowa State as far as any sort of metrics are concerned. But the theme of the day, how do you bounce back? Clearly, there's some scouting without Momchilovich. Reminded me a little bit of a couple of Iowa State's losses in Orlando last year. If you guys remember that, when that team was kind of playing together for the first time, and this is a thing that they'll be fine. We just saw them beat Kansas by 17 with this exact same group, so you know that they have it in them. But this was the bounce back of the bounce back that I kind of expected today. I did think Iowa State would. I think I picked them to win. who knows? It doesn't matter if I pick them to win or not, guys. I have no idea. But my point is, you kind of expected this, and you expected a spirited West Virginia team. That absolutely happened. It didn't get reported enough, the relationship between Otzelberger and DeVries. Those two each really wanted this one. I can promise you that. Goes back 20-some years with Greg McDermott. So get back after it. Williams and Bloom coming up on your Sunday. We'll have fresh reaction to all of this and look ahead to the upcoming week in Big 12 basketball. Aiden Wyatt doing all the producing today. We do have women's coverage tomorrow. The ladies are at West Virginia. They probably are probably went to the game, actually. I don't know that for a fact, but they are playing tomorrow at noon. So we'll go on the air with Leah Nelson and Chelsea Poppins at 11:30 for pregame. My name is Chris Williams. Tough one today for the Cyclones. We'll be back on Tuesday. Later.